Okay, welcome everyone to our week 3 webinar for the CMOOC. And with me today, we have live from Nelson, Paul Devine.
Hi, folks.
And we have Lisa from
Hi,
ANT.
everyone. Hi, everyone.
Great to have you two on board, and we may have some other people join as we go along, but we'll wait and see. So yeah, today, week 3, we're really looking at teaching, learning and assessment for a CMOOC portfolio, which is perhaps one of the easier sections to fill out, I think, because it's pretty much our core job as educators, is teaching and learning. And most of us have designed or developed or helped someone develop an assessment. So it shouldn't be too hard a section to provide evidence and critically reflect upon. And at this stage, I just thought I'd see where both Lisa and Paul are at with their portfolios, and then we'll have a look at some of the activities that we had for people to do for week 3. And hi, Raj, good to see you.
Hello, Tom.
Hi, Raj.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Raj.
Hello, Paul.
I don't know if you know Paul, Raj, but Paul is from Nelson, Marlborough Institute of Technology.
Of course I know Paul.
Very good, very good.
Yes,
And of course, you know Lisa, so there we are. So where are people at with their portfolios? So I'm going to start with Lisa.
Okay, so I've done the first module. It's just a matter of kind of condensing it down a little bit more. And the second module I've done is actually about assessment. So I've been working, I'm kind of in a little bit different situation. I'm a support person rather than a lecturer, but I have supported a lecturer in getting their assessment online on Blackboard. And it's a blog that students have been doing, and they self-assess one another. So it's kind of, it's been an experience to try and do this one.
Yeah, it sounds quite interesting example, Lisa. I mean, and if you can find some evidence of impact for student learning, that would be really good. You know?
I've got feedback from students as well, so I've got all that in hand. It's just a matter of putting it all together and you know, making sure that it fits in nicely. Yeah.
And I think the other thing to do too is if you can link to any supporting, you know, theory, learning theory, you know, experts in the field to back up or say why you chose to do certain things, then that really helps as well.
Sure.
And Paul?
I'm not sure if you can use me as an example, Tom.
You're probably a good example of where most people are at, Paul.
Okay. Yes, so I'm just taking, like I think I've said before, this is like a bus that comes past every time there's another iteration. I'm trying to get a bit further, and you know, I finally got my blog up and running, but I just need to reconnect with all of that, and you know, this time of year is kind of really, it's a bit frantic for us, and quite often Friday morning just slips past, and we always think there's more time than there's going to be. But I'm kind of resolving to just get a bit to get a bit further, and pick off again probably some low-hanging fruit.
Cool. I think that's a good strategy. Yeah. Just sort of knock away at it and do some stuff that gets you going. So you know, don't get stuck with the hard stuff. And Raj, I know you've completed your portfolio, but have you got any hints for people around this section, teaching, learning and assessment?
Yes, so I think this is a very important section, I believe, especially because this is a good opportunity to demonstrate the experience you know, a candidate has in terms of understanding teaching, learning, assessments, and especially understanding the learners. So I think I quite enjoyed writing this section particularly. And as Tom, you rightly mentioned, it's also important to sort of link it with a theoretical framework. So I sort of linked mine with I use a particular kind of feedback mechanism during my classes and the workshops which I ran, and I linked it with Laurie Lard's conversational framework. So I think that's really helpful. And I think, yeah, so for me, it was not too complicated. It was a straightforward process because I've sort of been involved in running workshops and teaching classes directly and working with academics. So the workshops are for the academics, so it was a straightforward thing. But I understand what Lisa means, that it can be very challenging when you have more of a supporting role. So it'll be interesting how she is able to put that thing across in her application. But I also think that it also gives you, Lisa, more opportunities, because you as a learning technologist, you could strongly come from that angle and talk about what exactly was your role in terms of supporting them, and what did you personally learn based on the reflection on that exercise, kind of thing. So yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I found that the hardest, because I've helped a lot of lecturers do assessments on our LMS, and it was just trying to focus on actual one of them. And
yeah,
more, yeah.
That's what I was actually thinking, that it's always good to give a specific example. So in your case, because you have done this birth of work, so you'll probably have to sort of cherry pick one or two specific examples and talk about them. That will probably make it more enriching, I think.
Yeah, and I've actually narrowed it down to one, so hopefully I can work on that one.
Great. Yeah, I think that's a good point, Raj, that someone in more of a support role, more of a learning technologist role, work across a whole raft of different contexts, and so they'll have a really rich body of evidence to be able to pull from. But it's just trying to, I guess, go in enough depth into an example is perhaps more the issue. Hey, well, great, and great to have you guys on board for this week's webinar. So we're just going to have a bit of a discussion around week 3 and some of the activities. So I'm going to go into screen sharing and just show people where we're at, just for those who haven't followed the activity. So let's start this. Okay, so hopefully you can all see my screen now. And so we're on week 3. So if you look at cmooc.wordpress.com, which is our hub for the CMOOC, you'll find the latest post there is highlighting week 3. And it's around teaching, learning, and assessment. So we suggested a few activities for people to do today throughout the week. One was do another survey looking at exploring the Scholarship of Technology Enhanced Learning and some of the key issues around that. And it's really just a way, sort of discussion starter, to get people thinking and get them thinking around learning theory and the link into their practice as a academic. The second suggestion was to perhaps work with a colleague on co-designing an assessment, or maybe you've done one already, and share that as an example in the project bank. And then, of course, to have a discussion with us in this webinar. And then the rest of it just sort of breaks down. There's 2 main areas of this section of CMOOC portfolio, as Raj was saying. One is an understanding of teaching, learning, and assessment processes. The second one is an understanding of your target learners. So it's really trying to match up what you're designing your course to be and to do and to assess, and make sure that it actually links up to your graduate outcomes, what you want your students to achieve and where they're at and how you can match that up. So those were some of the things that we also linked into the survey. So if we have a quick look at the survey, this was the link to the survey. As you can see, it's only 10, I think it's only 10, yeah, 10 short questions, very quick, very simple. It should only take you, 5 minutes to go through, but hopefully it'll also get you thinking. So the Scholarship of Technology Enhanced Learning, or really it's based upon Boyer's concept of the Scholarship of Teaching and Learning, and the Scholarship of Technology Enhanced Learning really builds upon that and sort of brings that concept into the 21st century and looks at the impact of technology on teaching and learning practice and scholarship. So we've had a number of people do these surveys, so this is the results so far. I thought it'd be quite interesting to have a quick flick through. So as far as people being research active, it seems that the majority of people are really just on the start of their research path. So either research has not been a big part of their their job or their early career academics. Then we see what types of research publications people have done. Majority conference proceedings, and I guess that's an easy way to get critical feedback from peers, to knock around an idea and then to work that up into a journal article. So next is journal articles, closely followed by conference abstracts. And I know that's quite a popular format these days, is to do an abstract for a conference. If you're going to do a full paper, then perhaps it's better effort just to put that straight towards a journal article. And so abstracts and short papers are quite popular at conferences these days. Book chapters, quite high there. It gives you a little bit more scope to knock out an idea a bit further. Unfortunately, book chapters really don't hold as much weight as far as, particularly in New Zealand, our PBRF impact goes. They really get relegated. And then the next highest one there is blog posts. So quite a lot of bloggers, which is nice. Artworks, okay, so there's probably some creatives from the creative industries who've been doing the CMOOCs, and someone's actually, or one person's done a patent, which is that's pretty clever. So probably someone's designed something and patented it. There are a few other responses as well. So here we go. What do people put there? Apps, book reviews, thesis. Yeah, good point. Thesis is a publication, and it does hold PBRF. Poster. Okay. What social networks do people utilize for publicizing their research? Twitter is by far the largest one there. I think that's probably also because Twitter integrates in most of the others as well, so you can tweet out from most of these other social networks. Facebook is not particularly very high, so that's interesting. That Facebook perhaps really is a social forum rather than a professional and publication-based forum, which I think is pretty intuitive. Scoop.it, not a lot of people use Scoop.it. Mendeley, Google+, unfortunately Google+ is about to die. YouTube, so perhaps people have created videos or interviews, or have have themselves video while they're being presenting. And there's a few others, not many on Reddit. So let's have a quick look at some of the others. Okay, so interesting here. Some people have not read the following questions and sort of jumped a little bit ahead because they put some research social networks, which we actually ask about in the next question. That's cool. So ResearchGate, etc. None. Walk ID, etc. What research social networks do you have profiles on? Well, this is, I guess the core ones here are academia.edu, ResearchGate, and Mendeley. So a big uptake of ResearchGate, 90% of people. It's probably a little bit of a reflection that we do actually recommend it to participants of the CMOOC, so it's probably not a big surprise there. There are some other ones, LinkedIn, none, and OrcID, but that brings us down into one of the questions further down. Do you have an online portfolio for your research? So there's quite a few people who don't, 36%. So I guess what we're trying to do is encourage people to actually create an online profile for their research and get their research out there, get people knowing about it, get people reading your work, get feedback. WordPress is quite high, and that's probably because we do encourage people to create their own WordPress blog. LinkedIn, and then the others are pretty minimal. So LinkedIn, of course, is pretty much where employers go to search for potential employees these days. So it's getting quite important to have a LinkedIn profile and perhaps to link to some of your key research outputs there. There are a few others. PeoplePad, yep. Research Map, Japanese government. Haven't heard of that one. It's probably Neil. Which researcher IDs? So this is different to, I guess, having your portfolio or a social network as such. The researcher ID is really trying to identify you and your body of work. Now, I think the cool one there is OrcID, and it's nice to see that quite a large percentage of people now have an ORC ID. It is now starting to get required by a lot of journals when you publish that you have an ORC ID. It's the Open Researcher and Contributor Identifier. Researcher ID, which is coming out of Web of Science, and Scopus ID from the Scopus database. If you do publish in social sciences areas, you probably will have an identifier on both of those, but you just need to go in there and claim it and let the database know that it is actually you. And of course, Google Scholar is quite popular as well. So the none there is the other. Do people use online bibliography tools? So just interesting to see what people use. Quite a bit of Mendeley, my EndNote. I mean, EndNote's very popular. It's interesting to see that more and more people are using and synchronizing to it online as well. So Tiro is quite popular, and then RefMe. What research domains do you focus on? Not too surprising, I suppose. A lot of the participants would be focused on the scholarship of teaching and learning, and so that is the highest. Closely followed by discipline-based research, and we are trying to get a lot of general academics involved, so generally that's where they focus their research. There's a few practice-based clinical, so we've got a few people from the health area and some other. Let's have a quick look at the other. Sociology, none, okay. Education, TEL, well, I guess those really come under SOTL, but depends how people are defining it. Which of the following research measures do you consider the most important? Well, they look like they're all pretty much equally important, although impact factor, traditional impact factor, edges out the others. So I hope people are kind of finding this interesting. I certainly find it interesting. What forms of mentoring in the scholarship of technology enhanced learning would you find most beneficial? It's nice to see community practice popping up ahead of everyone else there. So it looks like the approaches to professional development that involve collaboration are the most valued. So the SUMOOC gets a reasonable sort of a level in there, 57%. The more perhaps do-it-yourself are much less. So handbooks, reference database, other. So let's have a quick look. What's the other? Mentorships. Yep. Good point. Webinars. Okay. Well, we do those in the CMOOC, but yes, there can be independent webinars. So interesting results there. Any thoughts from our erudite members who are joining us with the webinar today on the survey results? I'll take that as a no, and let's move on. So, so the other activity was to share an example in the project bank, and so we're into week 3. And if we have a look here, I'm going to focus on one because we only so far have one new one, which is from Neil Cowie, who's teaching English in Japan, but is currently flying back from the UK to Japan, so he couldn't join us for the webinar today, so I thought I'd pick on him. So here's his example of exploring learning, teaching, and assessment. So if we click on the link, it takes us to his blog. So this is it here. And he just talks about basically his practice in teaching English to Japanese students. There's some interesting stuff there. He creates a rubric. He uses Padlet and negotiates that with the students. I think that's a really nice idea, bringing in that sort of student negotiation into the teaching and learning process. He uses Google Forms to collate that. So a good use of technology embedded into his practice. Then he gets students to create and share multimedia examples. One of the interesting things that he does say is that you would expect in Japan that education would have a higher level of technology, but in actual fact, they, particularly in his school, they don't have a lot of technology to hand, and therefore he does use a lot of free social network based stuff and links into the technology that his students use, which is their smartphones. So once again, that brings us into that aspect of understanding your target learners. What access to technology do they have, and how can you utilize that in your teaching and learning practice. He's given us some examples of student work there and a few references. So these references are to work that he's done where he's reflected upon his practice. I did suggest that he could put some references to relevant teaching and learning theoretical frameworks to support his choices, and he's decided he's going to add those in. So quite a nice little example there from Neil. I do quite like what he's done with his portfolio here on WordPress as well. He's got a little brief introduction about himself. So we get to know who Neil is. Here he is with his photo. A little bit about his context in Japan. He is from the UK, but he's been teaching in Japan for a while. So it's quite a nice way to actually get to know people, you know. He's got a list of publications. So if you do have some publications, it's a good point to put them there on your portfolio. It just gives some evidence of critical reflection. And if you can link to the actual items like Neil has done, then you can actually go and read them if you're interested. He's also done some presentations and put those there. So Neil came all the way from Japan and was a participant in our Scholarship of Technology Enhanced Learning Symposium. So I'm pretty sure Raj and Lisa probably saw him or met him. So it was great to have him at our symposium and then to continue that link with him through the CMOOC. And then what he's done so far, because he's just starting on the journey, I suppose, with his CMOOC portfolio, they're just blog posts at this point. So at some stage, I'd recommend that Neil puts that into more of a structured format that's a little bit easier to follow for the assessors around his actual portfolio, but you can follow through them by each post. Week 1 is his contextual statement, Week 2 operational issues, Week 3 exploring learning, teaching and assessment. He has redone his contextual statement. It was quite a long section that he did, and most people tend to do that because it's the first section most people tackle, and you get really excited and sort of, you know, just have a huge brain dump and everything goes there, and actually a lot of it needs to go into other sections of the portfolio, and so Neil's had a bit of a rethink about that, and he's tightened it up a lot and done most of it as a video, which I think is quite nice.
I think that's where I had the kind of brain dump and thinking, this is too long, I need to change it. So I might put mine into a video as well.
Yeah, and I think part of the key with the video is keep it relatively short. I think Neil's is, you know, just under 3 minutes or something.
Okay.
But he's done a really nice job. I like it. So have a look at that. So give Neil some feedback on the project bank. Give him some star ratings. You know, he might deserve 4 or 5 stars. You know, I think he's done a pretty good job there, and certainly give him some comments and some feedback on what he's done. If you think there's anything that he could improve, or just, you know, if you think it's a good example. So the other thing just to highlight is the Moodle forum, the discussion forum. Just trying to get a few more people to put some posts there and interact. Lisa and Raj have done a couple. Neil's done a few. Tom Worthington from Canberra has done a few. But it'd be nice to get a bit more interaction from other people there as well, and share ideas, ask questions. You know, so that's the group forum for the CMOOC, community.sofl.nz, and then you'll find the CMOOC course there, and then the discussion forum is basically just the social forum, so just encouraging people to get active there. And you can also see we post and update what each week's activity is as well, and perhaps some resources for people to follow through it as well. Okay, so that's enough of me talking. I'm going to stop the screen sharing, come back to our panel. So yeah, any thoughts, any comments? I'll put Roger on the spot there.
I guess it's kind of different for me. As I said earlier, that I'm in a support role rather than a teaching role. So it's kind of been a new experience and trying to get my head around just stepping back and doing it differently. Yep.
Yeah, I think perhaps what you could do, Lisa, is there's a whole database of CMOOC portfolios on the ALT website.
Yep. So I've had a look at a couple of those. So I think I don't want to look at too many to confuse myself. So I've picked out a couple that I've kind of looked at and might go down that track.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also don't feel too afraid to even contact people that that you might want to actually ask them what was their experience, get some ideas off them as well.
Okay, we'll do.
Most people who've done CMOLD are pretty open and willing to share.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah. So, Paul, is there any sort of takeaway from what we've looked at today that you think you might tackle? Perhaps the survey or putting together an example around teaching learning assessment?
Well, I definitely want to have a look over. Was it Tom? Did you? Sorry, Ian's blog.
The one we just looked at today, or
we just looked at? Yeah.
Neil Cowie.
Sorry. Yeah. So it's always inspiring to see somebody's blog and how they put it together.
Yeah, yeah. And in Neil's case, it's very much an in progress work, which is nice to see as you see it develop as well.
Yeah. So I just really want to reconnect again, and I see that some of the SOTL stuff is now in Moodle.
Yeah, just the discussion forum, because Google Plus is shutting down.
Yeah.
And of course you're a Moodle expert, so you might be able to even give us some hints on.
You might have to teach us, Paul.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Paul is the ultimate Moodle expert.
It's always good to participate in something that you inflict on other people.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul.
From a student perspective, more. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been studying for the last year. So it's really unique. For me, I sit in a room with learning developers who've developed the courses that I'm actually now studying. And I'm doing the assessments that they've designed.
And do you give them critical feedback?
Yes, I do. Yeah. It's
excellent.
Continual.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And I think that's key stuff that you can reflect on as well in your portfolio.
It's really worthwhile for me. I'm also using the platform that I administer and try to make better. And so get some really good.
That would be a good angle to put into your portfolio.
Yeah.
Both sides of it.
Yeah, and plus you're kind of mixing with students constantly, so you can see their reactions to stuff. You can see where they're confused, and you can get confused yourself. So yeah, really
it's an eye opener.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also I think just getting different perspectives from perhaps different age groups. So you and me, Paul, we're about the same age, and Lisa's just
20,
slightly younger, not much. And then of course Raj is just the baby.
So I'm 19 and you're 20.
But getting different perspectives from a wider age group of people, rather than just being us academics who perhaps at the other end of the scale. Yeah. Hey, well, thanks for participating and discussing and looking at week 3 with us. And I'm sure there'll be people who will watch the webinar later. So I'm going to close it off now. We're just about to hit our end time. Thank you very much for coming along, joining us, Raj, Lisa, Paul.
Thank you.
See you, Paul.
And, see you, Raj.
Don't forget to post in the discussion forums in Moodle, share on the project bank, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Paul, we might have to connect sometime and try and push each other through this.
Oh, can we? Yeah.
Can we? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I'll normally have Tom behind me with a whip.
Okay, I'm going to push the stop button there.
All right.